pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Remain standing. Lord, we thank you for this time together as a school board, and we ask that you would help us as we make decisions that affect our students and our staff. We pray for your continued protection of this campus and all who enter onto it. And we thank you for the holiday season that we're celebrating. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. And with that, we will call our meeting to order. This is the regularly scheduled school board meeting for December. And the first thing on our agenda is the consent agenda items, and our board has had a chance to look over those items. So if there are no questions or comments, we're going to consider them approved by unanimous consent. And we're going to move into the superintendent's update. Dr. Murphy has a financial review.
Looks like, as you can see from balances, $5,875,000 roughly encompassing all funds within the district. Did have a portion of the collections for the fall as it relates to local property taxes, and still yet when you look at the second, if you would, Mr. Campbell, that following slide. If you look at that slide, you can kind of see the breakdown in terms of collections at this point in time. The new allocation of assessment would be a culmination of collections from, it'll occur in 2 different fiscal years. So our fall collections are based off of prior assessments. Our spring collections will be based off of the new assessments under the appraisal format, with the existing millage rate remaining the same. So that's just kind of where we're at here mid-year. Is there any questions on the financials? Next item we have discussed with you this evening is an item that I want to get input from the Board of Education. Is I believe Mr. George, you attended virtually. Safety Summit had a fall meeting roughly with public schools. We heard from anyone from school superintendents to resource officers to an array of individuals, and Safety Security Commission has come up with recommendations, if you will, and so what we've got before you this evening is an approach to allowing us to give consideration to expanding the overall level of security personnel on our campus. And so what I'd like to do this evening is kind of walk you through this information. We have Officer Riley here along with Hayden. We've kind of worked with Mr. Campbell and us just in a general context of reviewing this information. It would, in a nutshell, give us the latitude with the appropriate level of training of an individual. It would authorize us to allow more than one person on our campus to conceal and carry. Is what it is authorized by law in the state of Arkansas allows you to do at this point in time. In the context of how we put this program together, it would be a unified decision that ultimately I would work with a team of individuals that we would select, individuals that we felt were qualified with appropriate positions, and then they would conduct on an annual basis training and then recertification, but that individual would not be disclosed to the general public. The resource officer would know who they are. That individual would then be authorized to carry on a daily basis on our campus. Currently, the only individual authorized to carry on our campus is our Chief of Police School Resource Officer, Officer Riley. So that's a generalization of the program. I would kind of ask for each of you two, if you want to make a comment, and then allow the board to maybe ask some questions. Is there anything that you heard?
Yeah, the only thing I really add to that, you pretty much covered it all. We've kind of worked with, our chief got the information from multiple schools in the county, kind of combined documents to make it our own. A lot of things were removed, some things were added. I will point out that this is for a concealed firearm. So these individuals would not be open carrying on campus. It would be concealed 24/7. Only time how we have it sitting here is if it's not on their body, it must be locked in a safe. There's other neighboring schools that are not choosing to keep it on a person. So I just want to make it clear that this firearm will be on the bodies of these folks who we choose in a concealed fashion. Chief, you want to add to that?
Yeah, one of the perks of going last is everybody else covers everything that you needed to say. I'll just add that going this route, what the school's looking to do at this particular point, I'm on board for going with the CSSO program.
Will there be one person in each building? Have y'all decided how they will be
Sure.
spaced?
So, when we, you and I have kind of, in the inception of this conversation, I think it was in my second year, we did a presentation. I think first and foremost, response time is critical in saving
Right.
lives. And so we need to acknowledge that this would never become a situation on our campus unless we felt as though we had an active shooter and an immediate threat on our campus where we knew someone was brandishing a firearm with the intent to hurt others on our campus. This would give us the latitude to have another employee at our disposal. To address your question, I think it really becomes a matter of finding the right people with the appropriate qualifications more so than, if you recall, in an ideal world, the presenter in that day and time said you would need someone in every wing, and when we just began to visualize that, it's about the people.
Right.
It's about the appropriate training. I think any additions that we can make to our campus, which gives us response beyond our resource officer, is advantageous to minimizing and eliminating the threat. And, I hate to be a school superintendent that talks in that context, but when you're talking about the lives of children being at risk, the response time is the most critical component in saving lives. So that's what...
So your goal is not to actively seek to put somebody in each building. It's more about finding the right people that can fill that role, and then hopefully they will be scattered around the campus.
And the other thing that you have to think about is their access, the immediate access, their relationship, their role as an employee, their flexibility versus their lack of flexibility. All of those things, when we've talked to other schools, probably historically, because of Lake Hamilton's proximity to county response, is probably the school district that I'm aware of that has historically implemented this program the longest length of time. I don't, Mark Curry over there, and you may have had conversations with him, but they've had this program many years. But I think our intentionality would be to ensure, one, there is it's a volunteer role. So the individual that is being sought for potential appointment has to be willing to do it.
Right.
And the training that they would undergo, quite frankly, in many instances, it is an adolescent that's trying to do harm to others. And so you have to, the training itself puts you in a very a tough place mentally, quite frankly, because that training involves taking out, as chief has to go through that training reoccurring on an annual basis, the threat. And that threat could be an adult or a child. So I think the mental element of this is by far the most critical part for the program to be successful, more so than whether we have coverage in certain areas.
And when are you looking at, are you actively seeking people now, or is this something, are you talking about down the road?
Yeah, so our intention behind this is we want to get it in front of the board currently. Based on the response that I get from board members regarding the concept, we would like to bring it back to the board in January to allow us to move the program forward with the intentionality of going through that selection process, and training process, and being up and running in the upcoming school year. That'll give us ample time to conduct the appropriate levels of training. Because school is in session, and so a lot of these types of trainings occur in the summer months, and we would want to give ourselves adequate time to vet and start down this path versus waiting. I wouldn't feel comfortable trying to implement something like this going into May or June. I'd much rather have these conversations with you guys at this point, and if this is a direction that you would allow the district to pursue, that would give us plenty of time to prepare as we move into the summer months.
Okay.
Couple quick questions. One is commission. Is that commission through Garland County?
State police.
State police?
State police.
Okay. Our costs would be, they're volunteers. So we would provide the armory, we would provide probably the gun safe, those type of items.
So
I know it's not supposed to be
things-
known to the board and the
No,
public.
but here's some costs.
Okay.
Training,
Right.
reoccurring training on an annual basis. The number of live rounds that have to be shot on an annual basis. Such that chief has to shoot X number of rounds, we pay for rounds in that regard. So ammunition there, initially, the gun has been done different ways. We would probably allow for, as long as that gun met the authorization, if you read in here, chief has to inspect. We feel more comfortable with them handling the firearm of their choice, as long as it meets the threshold. We feel as though they'll be more inclined to use that effectively. So we would pay for training and ammunition.
Yeah, and I don't really want to get hung up on nickels and dimes.
Sure.
Because the lives of a child is much more important than nickels and dimes. We're not going to put a dollar value. I always got to worry about the concern of the liability it puts the district in when you put more weapons on campus.
Right.
The opportunity for liability increases. And that would be my concern, but I'd rather voice it up front. I'm not, I've seen other states implement these programs, and they're probably having a lot of success because it's a sign of times that we have to do something, and we can't afford enough security officer to protect every student. So,
I have some rough numbers for your question. The average cost per person is running from $1,550 to $3,500 per person.
okay.
Per year.
Yeah, and I really don't want my questions to focus on nickels and dimes. It's more about the liability.
Right.
But that would be a concern because anytime we incur the cost, then we incur the liability.
Right.
So,
And the majority of that's just ammunition. Like the statement is here is that $1,500 to $3,500 cost of any ammunition and any protective gear. So, after the first year, whoever we on board, that protective gear wouldn't be, reoccurring, but a few things would.
How intense of a vetting process are we talking about? Because I would think that would need to be pretty tough.
I'm thinking the same thing.
Officer Riley, do y'all do any kind of mental evaluation or anything like that? Like, I may look normal.
we know different. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, so we probably all pass a background, but that ain't enough. I mean,
So the state does require, in order for someone to become a commissioned, officer or not an officer, but a commissioned individual to carry on K through 12 campus, they do have to go through a background check. They do have to go through a psychological exam. There's other things that are set in place that go beyond just like a security officer.
Or someone approaching me and saying, I'm more than willing to volunteer and do this, and I say, yeah, it's okay. We want to have a very layered process that includes those components that ultimately I'm allowed to authorize, but the way we're setting it up, there's going to be at least 4 people in the room that has the discussion around the vetting, chief being one, myself, Hayden in charge of support services, and Mr. Campbell in charge of instructional services, so that that process, first and foremost, my intention behind the design of it would be that we're comfortable with it, and it has longevity. You know, if you appoint an individual potentially to do the vetting and selection, if that individual is no longer present, then the program may or may not exist. We're trying to devise something that we feel that we can use long-term.
Good questions. What else, Sean?
I mean, I just like, when we went to the meeting or the conference, the examples, some of the examples they gave us were, I want to say it was Florida on that deal, the Parkland, or maybe not, I don't know.
Statistically,
The first person that the guy ran into, if he happened to be one of them people that were carrying, then all those lives would have been spared.
Right.
Would have been successful. So it was kind of an eye-opener to me. And then listen to the guy from Morrilton talk, their SRO. I mean, it's I like it.
The response time
The response
it's
time.
the most
critical
Yes.
factor. And unless Officer Riley happened to be in the right place at the right time,
Right.
you know,
I mean, just how long would it take to get from, if you're at the Agri building to the elementary? I mean, a lot can happen in a
Couple of minutes.
So,
So just wanted to bring that before the group. I know it's a heavy Christmas topic, but I don't say that in the context saying it lightly. I just feel like it is something that we've had some discussions. I have with individual board members about the concept in the past, and then you know, we had the training session with board members this fall, and then where the state is in terms of the allocation of potential resources moving forward. It's an era and time in which I just do not feel comfortable if this is a potential tool at our disposal we need to utilize.
and, you know, not like Lloyd said, not to talk nickels and dimes, but if we pay for the training, obviously we'll pay for their time taking the training, correct?
And we'll try to keep it on a need-to-know basis as low as we can.
Yes, for the benefit of the individual.
Right.
right. I would prefer that
Right.
we not know, nobody needs to.
Yeah, that could be a concern.
Yeah.
I mean, that was get out.
Right.
And we did talk at the convention that, you know, just speak this up, but like, if it was, you know, say you or whoever, and they did a bus, like on like trips to away games. Remember that question came up in they could, depending on the school, they could still be carrying on the bus to the, you know, the event. So, I mean, that's an added deal too,
Right.
I think.
Good, well, we'll look forward to hearing more about that, or
Right.
bringing it to us in
And we are
January.
on, you know, our January board meeting is pretty early coming back.
Right.
But at least if you got additional questions or thoughts, definitely get a hold of me, visit with each other, and the intention would be bring it back second time to the board with the hope that you would allow us to move forward.
Okay. Any more questions on that? Okay, let's move into the really hot topic of the month. The school calendar. I know we've got a couple of attachments here. Board members, if y'all want to go ahead and open them up, Mr. Campbell will have them open. There were 2 surveys done, one with the employees
Right.
of the district and another one with the community, parents and community. And so those results look a bit different from one another.
So, you know, what did we kind of learn in this process? I think, if you think about the surveys, there's one additional survey that is not linked in here, which was a survey originally that allowed for our employees to weigh in on the 4 calendar options allowed by law.
Right.
In which that survey came back roughly at 50% of the employee base, if you recall, were seeking a calendar option with 143 days and a 4-day week in it. As we've continued to discuss that narrative of that request. You know, the board and myself in our conversations felt like from our perspective, we wanted to sustain a theme of 178 school days versus a reduction in the overall school year, which then resulted in surveying the staff again based on a traditional calendar and a 178-day school calendar that reflected a 4-day week and a 5-day week. And so that's what you see from an employee perspective as it related to how they kind of viewed what those calendar options would be.
Right.
At which point in time, if I recall, Mr. Campbell, when we surveyed the employees, we had a Monday off option and a Friday off option, which was what created the 4 options for the employees. We took those results then and wanted to formulate a next step with, we felt as though coming off of the Thanksgiving timeframe that we needed to further open this up for some community discussion, as well as an opportunity for community to weigh in a public forum, in which we conducted a public forum, tried to stream that, and you know, that resulted in the response as far as how our community weighed in. When you look at how the employees weighed in versus how the community weighed in a general sense, you can see that the employees are more willing to entertain a calendar that would be different than what the community is.
Correct.
And so we had over 700 plus responses from the community, weighing in roughly at 62%. At this point in time, preferring to remain with a form of a traditional calendar with a longer summer break versus a shortened summer break. We learned several things in the community comments. You know, one of the takeaways that for me, thinking as a leader, what we presented to our community was a very significant change. It was you know, as a board, we were thinking that learning loss was going to be the priority in the design of that calendar, and so we went with a 4-week window, which is a very different, almost a significant change from a traditional calendar.
Correct.
The law does permit you to have up to potentially a 7-week summertime break, which I view as had we maybe went with a 7-week type break, would those numbers shifted any? That's all speculative. What they were voting on was this 4-week window or a traditional calendar from a community perspective. Mr. Campbell, you vetted comments as they come in. I'm going to kind of turn it over to you and make a few comments. You were very close to the surveying. You addressed community questions. You addressed staff questions. What were some of the takeaways that you would share?
A big one, you know, we knew that we would need to figure out what athletics would look like. We knew that summer jobs was a concern, that summer vacation time was a concern, that childcare would be a concern. One concern that we hadn't identified, but that was mentioned in the comments a number of times, was custody agreements that are based on a traditional calendar, and that those would have to be revisited and probably in the court in some instances. And so that was an area of concern if you move away from a traditional calendar. A lot of folks were not happy that they had to select more than one. We asked for them to basically vote on all 3 calendars, so that if it were close, we could then dig down into the data and look and see. It's obviously not close, so there's not a lot of digging to be done. So that was why we asked for folks to select all 3. A number of comments where I picked traditional, and that was the only one I wanted to pick. I do not support the other calendars, even though you forced me to vote for the other calendars. So I wanted to acknowledge those comments. There were folks who liked the idea of extending the school year. And in their comments, they expressed that, but the comments, there were 236 comments, and probably the bulk of those were focused around maintaining the traditional calendar. So it's pretty evident where our folks stand. I did send out on Friday an offer because we were collecting email addresses that made it difficult for some email extensions to access the survey. So I offered to manually accept, and I had 7 come in. 5 of those were for traditional and 2 were for 5-day.
Okay.
So we did take those into account as well. Didn't shift the percentages.
Right.
But
It's a pretty good response rate.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be happy with that.
Right. You know, the process allowed for, I think, hopefully everyone who wanted to acknowledge and be heard, latitude to be heard in that regard. I think it gives the board a perspective as it relates to the community's well wishes, and it does give us an indication that there is a level of interest from an employee perspective of doing something different with where we're at, with the information that I see that we have at this point in time. You know, it'd be my recommendation based on where the community's well wishes are at. It's a community in which we serve, that we remain with a traditional calendar, knowing full well that if a level of, you know, see what we can do with summer school to strengthen that program, maybe conduct some surveying more in depth to determine what would interest the community in summer school programming. What's the, you know, as far as educational programming in the month of June, you know, maybe we solicit and figure out why our participation levels are so low.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I thought of as I was looking at these results is this is the first time that our parents and our community have been hit up with this idea.
Correct.
So it is brand new, and so maybe it's not appropriate for the upcoming school year, but now that it's been exposed to their minds, and they have that opportunity to just kind of be more aware that sits out there, and perhaps it's a discussion for the following year. It doesn't mean that it is never going to happen, but there are also some other schools doing things like 4-day weeks. There are schools that are like Hot Springs talking about year round. So, you know, maybe, you know, I kind of agree with what you're saying is that traditional seems to be the overwhelming choice at this point, but perhaps just like our millage issue where we just keep going back and we just keep adding data to it, you know, maybe this is one of those things. We'll see how the other schools are doing with it.
Correct, and I think that's one of the things we heard, you know, do we need and have to go first? That was kind of a community
We
element.
don't, but
which,
you know, they also are going to be aware that we're going to fall under that. We can't start school as early next year, so semester is not going to end before Christmas.
Right.
And, you know, and that's just the way it's.
So one of the things,
There's a lot of
go ahead.
unknowns. I think there's a lot of unknowns. So, I mean, I think, like you said,
Here's what
Well, we
I,
talked about too, there's really, we have not collected, there's no data
No,
that we
not
can
in-
say this is why we're doing it, especially on a 4-day. I mean, there's plenty of places, and especially other states that have done year-round, but I mean, 4-day for our area is brand new
Yes.
this year. And I'm kind of with that comment of why do we want to be the guinea pig? Let's see how this plays out.
And really, the whole conversation came about, you know, when the state opened it up as an option, our teachers, via their PPC, were talking about it as an option, and that's how it sort of made its way to the board. And from the board's perspective, honestly, our first concern is learning loss, that the traditional learning loss that happens over the summer,
Right.
as well as the 2 years of COVID loss that we had. And so from the board's perspective, it was, you know, is this a way we can combat some of that? Because doing what we've been doing is not going to overcome the
Deficiency.
loss. Yeah, the deficiency that we're having right now. So that was where the board's perspective was, for those of you who are listening online or here in the room. But we're not bound to that. We serve the community, and you know, if the community wants to stay traditional for next school year, then I think we're all totally fine with that.
Well, that's what I was alluding to in the group.
Yeah,
The recommendation would be to guide the PPC to put together and design a calendar that meets the traditional threshold of the law and bring it back to the Board of Education no later than February would be a fair timeline to me. It'll give us ample time upon the return of Christmas to put something together and get it back before the board.
I'll bring this up, I'm sure you've heard it, but I know they have too. There's been lots of conversations on
On the
this.
calendar.
correct.
Can't hardly watch a ball game or phone ring. I mean,
Yeah,
but I have heard a lot, and I'm not up to date at how it all works great, but I have heard a lot of feedback about maybe giving them some options of looking at changing Wednesday and how long we go during the day, since we already go over the required amount of time,
right.
to maybe have some options that,
Okay, so what you're bringing up there is a separate question
Right.
from when we actually have school, but the structural, maybe a conversation that centers around what the school day itself is.
I've heard a lot of
Correct.
that, yes.
And-
Maybe that's an option
Right.
that they, oh, well, we don't,
And,
this helps timeline.
Just so the board is aware of it, that was a conversation that we had directly with the employee base in an employee meeting, talking about that, there are two real topics here. One, when are we going to school? And two, what's the school day look like?
Correct.
And so,
And perhaps there is some wiggle room in that. What does the school day look like that would afford either more planning time for our teachers, or a shorter school day for our kids, or,
Yeah, it's just kind of like I thought that, an alternative to, if we stay traditional, maybe there's some, like she said, room to structure differently where the teacher has that more time, or,
Right.
you hear from them, well, my kids check out mentally at 2:45, 3 o'clock anyway, and you're in there till 3:30, so
right.
just.
any comments on
Stuff I've
that, or
heard.
not at this
Yeah,
point?
that's, we
We had that
talked with the
conversation.
PPC and we'll hammer out some solutions. All of the calendars that were posted were 7:55 to 3:15 or 3:05. And then if we have early dismissal on Wednesday, if we don't have early dismissal on Wednesday, that 4-day year-round calendar was a 7:55 to 2:55.
Right.
So we will address the length of the school day.
There's two things that I would make comments that are variables that we have to think about when bussers arrive for the Elma supervision, and how we organize lunch with the current cafeteria situation. Those are really the two things that have always kind of been probably the two things that's the hardest to work through and around. When we actually put our students on campus, being one of those two, based on 600 plus of them getting off a school bus. And that's something we can control, but it may require us to think differently on, specifically, will we do a first block national park route or not? Because we have to get those students to the college by 8 o'clock. And so if we're getting students to the college by 8 o'clock, it requires us to get buses onto campus shortly after 7:30.
Right. There are lots of factors.
So there are factors
There
there
are.
associated, but there's some things we can look at, and we're more than willing to do that.
But I'd like to, tell our parents and community that are watching that we have heard you through this survey, and we appreciate your
You
responses
bet.
to our survey. Absolutely. Anytime we have these out there, the more responses, the better, because that helps guide our decision-making as a board. So we appreciate all the responses that we got, and
I know, like, one last thing, this I know a lot of people talk about how they thought it was a done deal, that we
Right.
were just going through, crossing the Ts and dotting the Is.
Okay.
This was not a done deal.
Oh,
I
at
mean, this
all.
was, this is the example of the communication that we've asked and
Yeah,
appreciate seeing,
Yeah.
that we want the community to be able to weigh in. So,
right, because it does guide our decisions.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that we won't talk about alternative schedules again in the future, because we might. But again, it will be at the, with the community's input and with the staff's input. It's not gonna be just driven out of these
Isolated.
chairs. Right. So, now, that's not anything we have to officially vote
No.
on. It just stays just like it is, traditional calendar.
And I will emphasize it once again, we're going to recommend a traditional calendar for next year and move forward with the plan and design of that calendar so that the board has latitude to adopt something so people can plan their summers accordingly.
Right.
With our goal being to adopt something in February.
And PPC will come back to us with
Anything
that.
I'm needing to
Just that-
clarify.
Just that the board is scheduled to meet on the first day of the spring semester. So our next meeting is our first day back,
January.
January 9th.
Correct.
Nine,
Your
okay.
meeting, and that's our first day back. So PPC's here this week and next week.
Yeah, we're not
We're
gonna
not
probably
gonna
have
get it
anything in
done.
front of you
Well,
until
yeah.
February.
Yeah, that's
It'll
fine.
be at the February meeting.
That's fine.
But we don't have to adopt one until March.
As long as the word gets out
I
that
think
we have heard and we
Technically.
have responded,
Earlier
so.
the
Yeah.
better.
And the legislature, Mr. J mentioned, is meeting, beginning to meet in January. At this point, I've visited with a couple of legislators, and they don't know of anything in the pipeline to address the start of school.
Right.
So right now, we have to plan for that 2 weeks.
2 weeks
before
prior to
Right.
Labor Day.
Good deal. We appreciate the input that we received on that topic.
And I would just echo, I appreciate the board's openness, willingness, anytime you engage in the survey process, and you just, the patience to allow that to work itself out, because I know each of you were getting, as you're alluding to, calls, conversations, you know, it kind of goes anytime that you ask, people may try to insert their position more than once, and so I just appreciate the board for kind of staying the course, letting the survey work through the process, and then reviewing the results here today.
Good. All right, let's move into Mr. Campbell. No, we have Hayden's report next. Hayden's got the health center update.
Yes, we go over health center and food service report. I have Kim Girl here tonight. She oversees our health clinic, and she does a phenomenal job. So I want her to have a report on the health center, kind of let you know what's going on from year to date or school year to date so far.
Okay, so our quarter 1 numbers, so this would have been July 1st through September 30th. So quite a bit of this time was without students on campus. So we had 411 total medical encounters. 180 of those were students, 49 were staff, and 182 were community. I thought that was pretty impressive considering that students and staff weren't here for a lot of that. The second quarter, which we're still actively in, so this is through December 2nd, 409 medical encounters, 174 of those were students, 55 staff, 180 community encounters. HealthStar is pleased with the numbers as far as us compared with their other school-based clinics. We're kind of setting the pace,
Good.
so to speak. So we're pretty impressed, and we're happy with who we're helping so far. We actually, through beginning of the year enrollment, now have 850 students enrolled in the health center, so that's about 65%.
That's awesome.
I'm hoping to
Can
try to
you
do
give
that.
an explanation of what enrolled means for anyone who may be
Enrolled
listening?
means
And
that
what does
we-
that give you the latitude to do?
So that actually, our consent forms are continuous as long as they're here at Fountain Lake unless it's withdrawn in writing. So that means we have 65% of our students are enrolled to receive care at the health center right now. So if they go to the nurse sick with phone call to the parents, we can get them seen, get them treated, and get them back.
Good.
I also went ahead and included the school-based mental health numbers. As of now, we have been approved to start doing Medicaid billing for our mental health services for what Morgan and Riley see on campus. We're going to kind of wrap up some loose ends next semester and hope to go full force billing Medicaid for mental health next school year. So during
January or next? school
no,
year?
we're gonna do next school year,
Okay.
because, the way Medicaid billing is, you have to bill an intake visit first. Well,
Okay.
Morgan and them have already
Done their
completed
intakes.
intake visits.
Yeah.
So that would mean trying to do another mid-year intake, which is, that will be a nightmare.
Okay.
So, not to mention, we kind of want to get some paperwork and stuff streamlined so that over the summer, they're gonna, be ready to roll full force.
Okay.
And so they saw in the first quarter 518 mental health encounters. That was also why kids were mostly not here. So that's touching base via video or however you've got to do it. They had 635 so far this quarter. We actually have 220 students receiving mental health services, and of those, 150 of those are being seen by our Fountain Lake employed health,
Okay.
mental health
And then
coordinator.
the others are,
Yeah,
outside.
43 are with Life Strategies, which is our only other outside provider that's coming to campus. And then we have 27 seeing outside providers with, that would be their parents taking them. I thought that was pretty hard hitting though, that our two mental health providers are seeing
Yeah, that's what
150 of
I was just
those.
thinking.
Yeah.
It's a lot for two.
It is, and of course, it's a constant juggling act to get counseling scheduled among all their other activities and education. So, the fact that they've seen as many as they have is actually quite astounding.
Absolutely.
And that's all I have, if you, unless y'all have any questions.
I think y'all are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Kudos.
very proud of the progress with the clinic, the extension of services rendered to our community from a medical aspect. Is just, I'm just very pleased with how it has served our community.
Absolutely.
My dad loves you. He was going nowhere, so nowhere else.
We love him. He's-
That's awesome. Thank you. That's a really good presentation. That gives us a lot of good information there, so we appreciate that. And
All right, got food
Next.
service now. So I had Judy type that out there on the left, kind of just a review of what's been going on year to date too with the food service program. You know, we are contracted with Charwell's, and that program, that partnership has gone over very, very well. And kind of what Dr. Murphy alluded to earlier about just the space and drinks that we deal with for our size of cafeteria, you know, housing K-12 in there, they did an excellent job. We're fully staffed. We kind of float, we kind of lose one, gain one, but we're all in all, the last year and a half, we've done very, very good on just employee retentions. Kind of just going through these bullet points, we still do post all of our menus on NutriSlots, and we still do get several parent comments about that every now and then through Facebook or right to the cafeteria staff in general. We do have an app called NutriSlots. It's in the Android App Store or Google Play Store, and the Apple App Store as well. It's called NutriSlots. That's where you can find all of our menus. All of our meal prices are the same from last year. You can see those through the list. We are still with My School Bucks. That is something I'm looking into, switching to Titan this summer. We kind of have a little bit high of a fee when parents want to put in money into the students' accounts. Titan comes in a little bit lower, so we're looking at completely changing our full POS, our point of sale, and that will bring it tighten, and that will reduce the current amount or the extra fee they add on for more of a convenience fee for using online payments.
For the transaction.
For the transactions.
Can
So we're
the
looking to
kids
see
still
that.
bring money to school? and put
They
it in?
can.
Okay.
Yes.
We do take cash.
Yeah.
Now, these prices are basic, but when we were down there, there's upcharge potential
For
or
a la carte
add-ons,
items.
okay.
Yes. Yeah. Kind of moving on down, our free and reduced lunch form went pretty well. The numbers are a little bit higher than that. I think she put on there 433, and more have come in since then. I can give you that exact number next board meeting. But for our first year going online, very positive results, and we just hope to see that number increase next year. Moving on down, we have our meal counts. This is just year to date as well. 26,515 student breakfast meals served. 53,631 for student lunch meals served. An area that I like to work on personally of getting increased is just our adult breakfast and adult lunch meals increased. You know, I have Judy and Kenny kind of working on ways to motivate staff. You know, maybe do we do like a newsletter approach, or, you know, here's in the cafeteria today, just to get, you know, them in the cafeteria more. So I'd like to see that 62 a little bit higher here next year. And Judy's still there. She thinks it's pretty good considering it's on the first semester in the school year, and I agree with her. So year to date, they've done an excellent job in making the cafeteria.
And, you know, I'd add that several of you
Yeah.
spend a little time in the cafeteria.
Yeah, to see it
I
in
didn't get
action.
to, but I'm going to, but, so I rode a bus today.
Oh, good.
Were you a
You
monitor?
made up for it.
You were a monitor on the bus?
Well, I hung out and talked to kids, but, so.
Yeah, the cafeteria was fun.
So they said, I mean, we were talking about something, and they said the cheese pizza.
The cheese.
They said, we want the old pizza, We don't like the new pizza.
Those old pizzas are on with those square pizzas. Do you remember those?
Yeah, but I had a piece pretty good though.
It was.
I said, I'm
We've
gonna
been
try.
there, it's good,
But
yeah.
they did, hey, everybody bragged about, I hear a lot of people bragging about the sandwich deal.
Yeah.
They love the sandwich deal.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand,
Yeah.
I didn't understand the chicken and cheese Crispito and the mashed potatoes. I told them that was
Speedo.
Yeah, one of them said, yeah, they gave us Crispitos, and I said, what else? They said mashed potatoes. I was like, how you throw mashed potatoes in the country?
Well, I kind of thought it was odd that we got pizza and french fries. I mean,
Yeah.
that was,
But hey,
but it worked.
One thing, this may not be the answer to what you're saying, but just more FYI, you know, we're still really dealing with, I wouldn't say food shortages, but just supply chain issues on what we receive.
Oh,
You know,
really?
if we're ordering X, Y, or Z, sometimes, you know, we plan our menus off of, and that X, Y, or Z doesn't come in. So, you know, we kind of have to make
they
it,
give
you know,
you
things
A, B,
work.
and C.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
It's
ask
getting better.
a dumb question, but for clarification for everybody. So like the school bucks that charges a fee.
Mhm.
So clarify, is that to the parent or that's the fee the school pays for going through
This
this?
is just for the parent fee. So
Yeah.
currently, I think the parent fee, who put it, y'all put it in now, I think
It's
it's
like
like
$2.
additional. I would say almost $3 right now.
Every time you load
Every
money
time
on
you
there.
load
So they're actually loading and then
Yeah.
losing to the fee.
Correct, yeah.
Wade
So-
adds it on top of it, cause like I just put $50 in and it charged me 52.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's getting close to 3.
Yeah.
And what I don't like is, and I talked to Judy about this,
Mhm.
so I've got 3 kids. I've got one that's got money in there from 2 years ago,
Mhm.
because he brings his lunch every day. You can't move that money.
Yeah, you should be.
If it's my money, I should be able to move that money.
One for a family.
Sure.
Yeah.
One
I mean,
account.
If I want to move $10 from A to B, I should be able to.
Sure.
So,
So
but you
that's-
I'll
can't.
check in on that.
You can't,
check.
right?
Good point.
No, you can't right now.
Well, with the
But-
new system, I'm saying check
Yeah.
on that.
Jack, I'll check on that for you.
Couple quick questions. Our free and reduced application was online,
Yes,
and we use Rocket Scan.
Yes.
So there's a fee for that. But if I filled out a paper application,
mhm,
because not all parents have online access,
right,
they may not have the app on their phone.
mhm.
does someone transcribe that over to a online application? Is that how we do it? We take that
Yes.
information?
Yeah, so part of this new program we bought it, we do have a little small scanner in Judy's office, so they'll give them the parent, guardian, a free introduced lunch physical paper form. Usually goes to the building offices, collect them there at the office, and they can make it their way back to the cafeteria. Judy scans those in through that rocket scanner, and we'll upload it to our Rocket Fish that's online, the same program. So yes, we still do take paper copies.
Okay, that's all I wanted to make sure there was some way for those people that don't have online access.
Right.
What was our percentage of forms we got filled out versus the students we have?
133 was that?
433, yeah, 430. It's a little bit
Says
higher
higher
than
though.
433.
So
Yeah,
maybe,
1300.
yeah,
That's
so
all right.
about
You gotta
30% maybe.
think that's filled out per family.
Right.
Right.
So you may have a household with 4 siblings
Well,
in it,
that's
even though
true.
we have
Right.
1,300, so we can't mathematically.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, when they come in the office, we just hand them the iPad. Like, they do the
Right.
registration paperwork, like, okay, and here's this. I mean, we just
You
like,
just don't even,
Yeah.
they have no
that's
idea
right.
what's hitting them. We
yeah,
just
just say,
hand it over.
keep going.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
IT gave us all iPad that just has the school form on it.
Okay,
So
good.
there's no, and we help them fill it out, and then
Yeah.
it makes it pretty.
Well, let us know about the Titan. I brought it up because just the community we're in, I know
Sure.
it's the day and age we live in, but I don't like people losing
Right.
Yeah.
money
Yeah.
loading for their lunches.
Okay.
Right.
But it is what it is.
Sure. Yeah, we're looking at a summer rollout for Titan. You know, we can't do that mid-year, but once we start our demos and webinars, I'll make sure to get that out for you.
Okay, good. Okay, on the school bus driver,
Yeah, changing
That's
gears.
all. Yeah,
We
that's-
just had our audit, I want to say last Thursday. I'm sure Cammy will correct me tomorrow when she hears it, but I'm pretty sure we had last Thursday. Everything checked out very well.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a law. All schools have to go through this. District was found not to be deficient in any areas.
good.
You kind of see what they check, you know, they go through and check our school bus safety plan, CDL numbers for the drivers, the type of CDLs they have, and then make sure we're doing our background checks, and they check random drug screens as well. So I
Pretty
think most of
thorough.
that's listed.
Just wanted to share that information with you, the work that they're doing up there, and appreciate it.
Yep. Good job, bus drivers.
Yep, they're doing a great
Everybody's
job.
compliant.
Security checklist.
Security checklist. Everybody's leaving doors
Yeah,
open.
That's right. No, it's not
That's
bad.
not-
So
not
I
bad.
visited Chief Riley about these, and the majority of them, he's already visited with the principals, and these are just majority are kids going to the bathrooms, coming back to the classrooms, the door may be left unlocked. So that's what he felt to me, and he felt all in all, we're doing a very good job across the campus
Good.
of keeping our doors secure. We have a few custodial closets that were left unlocked this time that has been addressed to Josh. So all in all, a pretty good report this month too.
Good.
So one of the things that we might, as we kind of see this, trying to achieve a perfect score, when we get that information with Chief Riley, as far as the buildings are concerned, I know that the middle school, and probably the high school, students are of an age that would be an age-appropriate conversation for them. Do they get to see the results of the outcomes of what we're doing and what we're checking on, because they play an active role in the culture of our safety?
One thing that we really noticed, we have talked about it with them in the principal hangout that we do on Wednesdays.
Right.
But, unfortunately, part of the protocol of that security visit is that we don't know whose door was open. And when you give a blanket statement, it doesn't apply to anyone because I didn't do that.
Right.
So there's no way that could have been me. I would never leave a door open. So I think that's one thing is that we are
Give you
just,
more specific feedback.
yes, so if we have specific feedback, I think we could say, hey, third period, we really need your help in room 217 or whatever. Because we're talking about these things that they don't believe that any of that applies to them.
So why not, what's the reason, why not go to that classroom?
They didn't want it to become an evaluatory thing where someone was being, felt like they were being targeted or in
I understand
trouble.
that, but-
Yeah, that's what, because I asked, I said, well, whose room was it? And Officer Riley said, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to tell you that. So I was like, oh, good, well, we'll come with you next time. I mean, that was my response.
That's what
was,
There you go.
if I'm with you, then I can
Then you'll
discover this on my own. Yeah.
My point is, If you can't address the problem, you're not gonna fix the problem.
Right, well, and I just really learned, if there's one lesson I've learned this first semester, is that blanket statements are not effective.
Right.
So we really need to be able to have a conversation with someone to, you know, guide that learning.
Because ultimately, I mean, I'm not saying it's evaluation, but if you, like I said, if you can't address it,
Right.
you can't fix it. So
Right,
next month, there might
Be
be
the
5 in the
same.
high school, it's the same 5.
yeah.
That's something
Frank
we,
needs to be able to address it.
right, that's something we can
Our
definitely
biggest issue
change.
usually happens in that annex because there's no bathrooms
Yeah.
in that hallway.
Right.
Yeah.
So now, they've got the ability to get back and forth into the building, which makes it a little nicer with the little call button on there, because before, they're either banging on the glass or banging on the door. Or,
Over on the window, trying to get in.
Yeah, that's something we can definitely change. I think from Chief Riley's perspective, when he goes through his renewal training every year, when they push the school safety piece, and I think Dr. Murphy found this, presented to him, I think Chief already seen it too. I think it's a training that they go through, says keep it the way it is, but yeah, we can definitely change it at our discretion.
Yeah, I mean,
But there's not, I mean, this is a one-time a month spot check. And
Right.
nothing stops the principal from walking down the hall, checking doorknobs.
Right.
No, no, you're right.
Yeah.
Stepping in and saying, hey.
yeah.
So, I mean,
Like it
that's
is.
just a point in time.
Yeah.
It'd just
Right,
be a
it's
different
just
point in
a
time.
moment in
Sure.
time.
Yeah.
And it gives us the latitude to kind of see what our level of vulnerability is.
That's right.
Yeah, no, you want it to be a sponge.
You'll talk about favorite things?
But I also agree, if we can do anything to enhance the feedback, that might give us the ability to strengthen the end result.
All right, we have our monthly reports. I don't know if the principals have any comments that they want to make. Ms. Curry, you got your, student attendance rate. That's something that we are struggling with. The number of students who are missing an excessive number of days. And it's a tough place that we're in, and it's not kids skipping school, it's parents letting kids stay home for whatever reason, to the point that I think the high school is 183 of them have over 6 days.
193 have, out of 400, have more than 6 days of absences, not including school business.
Almost half of high school students.
And we get a lot,
Wow.
and we understand the medical absences, but we get a lot of mama notes constantly, and that's going to be something we have to address.
And that's a cultural thing. It's,
Right.
it's, if you tell mama you don't feel good, then we'll just stay home today. Or family wants a long weekend, then we just take a long weekend. And that's all good and fine, but that's half the kids have missed 6 days. So that means we've been in school 13 weeks, so they've missed one out of,
Yeah,
they 1 day a week, every other week,
yeah,
not including the days that we take off, get them off to
Right.
begin with.
Right.
So we're already,
are y'all seeing that in middle and elementary also?
Yeah, I've been really busy filing fins. I just kind of decided there couldn't be any discrepancy between that, whether it was a habitual offender or, my friend that teaches in the other building. So everybody that met the requirements, we made a blanket decision, Mr. Freeman and I, to cut off parent notes at 6. If they were allowed 6 absences, we were not going to allow more than 6 parent notes. So Mary adjusted all of our attendance and we went through there. So my first meeting with the juvenile court, they made me aware that it doesn't matter if the absence is excused or not. If it's not a medical excuse, it can still be counted. So I've had a really lot of good luck with our current diversion officer, and I will say, unfortunately, every student that we've placed on a FINS in the first semester has failed, and so they will be going before juvenile court. So I think,
Not failed class.
no, like failed their
No.
fins.
Failed their, yeah.
Yeah.
fins, Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
poor attendance. And once they're put on the
Describe
fins,
that
they're,
for the board.
yeah, they're only allowed 3 absences. Once you're on a fins, you cannot withdraw to go to another district or withdraw to homeschool during that 60-day period. The court monitors your attendance and your grades weekly. So it does create a lot of paperwork for me, but it's that added layer of, support. So one thing that I've noticed is that, for them, the kids will come in and be like, I know I cannot be absent tomorrow, but I have, such and such. So they're taking a little bit more responsibility. I feel like if I can't do something at the middle school level, there's no way we're going to get them to school at high school.
Right.
So, and I really, really have had
Just
a
have it.
lot of good luck with our current diversion officer. She's working really hard and taking this very seriously.
Good. Yeah, it's about getting them to buy in to that personal accountability.
Mhm.
You have to be at school.
And I think the big wake-up call has been, because a lot of their immediate responses is fine, we'll just homeschool. And then when they say, well, you can't, and you cannot withdraw. So that's been a really good, you feel supported in that,
Good.
So, but yeah, attendance has been a struggle.
Even in elementary, as we see here on the elementary report.
We don't have quite as many as they do, but we've had 5 or 6 fence diversions. But of course, our children can't get themselves to school. So.
Right.
Ours can't either.
Right.
I know another school in the district, or not the district, but in the county, had a deal where in our handbook it says you shall contact somebody like the court after somebody, but another district changed it where it was like up to the discretion of the principal or whatever. Ours is shall, right?
Mhm.
So what's the difference in that? How does that work?
We pretty
Shall
much
is will.
contact the court when we
Shall
said.
is will.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
but
As opposed to.
as to opposed of it not being a shall, how does that work for the state? Is it a state deal, or is it just?
No, it's really, there will be, as we all know, potentially a situation that you need to, it's an extenuating circumstance. It would not require you to engage the court, that it would be negative, it would negatively impact that situation, the relationship, everything. What we're looking at in the context of this role is really reinstituting the importance of attending school.
Absolutely.
And so that's, the shall piece really just gives you the discretion if you choose not to. The position of the leadership is to use them more frequently versus less based on what
And
you're
it's
seeing.
not
with
a cold
attendance.
call decision. I mean, before we get to that point, we are sending
Correct.
letters, we are
Yes.
making phone calls, we are emailing, we are counseling with the child regarding attendance.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a lot of steps before you get there, but I do think at some point, we have to get assistance.
Because
as well.
it does, in many instances, will inherently damage the relationship between the home and the school. And the more that relationship erodes, it spirals in the wrong direction when it comes to teacher support, doing the work, all the other components. So we don't take it lightly.
Right.
And there are other steps in place versus just picking up the phone, trying to get the court involved.
And part of it's a byproduct of the pandemic where we closed our doors and said, stay home. And then if somebody in your classroom tested positive, we sent you home.
Right.
Right.
So folks.
We've not been
that's-
coming.
that's a habit.
But you also
Consistent.
mentioned too, sadly, it's society. People don't care.
Right.
We can do all this, it's not gonna change a lot of them. We just do what we can do.
Yeah.
I want to compliment the high school on the number of rape incidents.
And elementary, they were both at
Oh,
zero.
I'm sorry.
Oh, good.
They had none at the elementary as well.
Remember,
That's a plus.
November was a short month.
Hey, you only,
I know,
there's only
still.
one in middle school, I have to give credit.
That surprised me.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, like I'm celebrating over here with my
Yeah, it was
window.
one, so.
Yeah.
Did
Well,
you
the vape detectors work. I would like to tell you that they do go off. Sometimes it's in the evening when they're cleaning, but You know, we are testing some chemicals right now because we had one going a little crazy the other day, and Steve was following them as they're cleaning, and it just keeps going on. But no, I mean, they're working, those kind of things. I do think that it's just not as appealing, I guess, as it was at the beginning of the year. They learned they weren't getting away with it. I think that's, you know, been a big help. But I'm doing this every month, so I'm going to do it again. Our referrals are down 44% from last year in November, so
That's awesome.
that's my big celebration. But our mental health services are increasing each and every month, and that is something that I think just we really, at the middle school, we do have the highest mental health numbers, and they continue to rise monthly. And so that is, it's really hard for us to keep track of that.
You know, two things that I would comment in that regard. A recent article that I sent the team on the new terminology of a screenager and the implications of social media in that regard. And if you caught the 60-minute component last night, they were alluding to the implications that social media is causing suicidal tendencies, anorexic behaviors, a whole array of issues that our children are facing in the arena of social media. And it kind of, from a parental perspective, there's not only a parental role, but there's this now a series of lawsuits and litigation being posed against social media because of the implications and everything that's occurring. And so, you know, you and I have had several conversations. You even conducted, unfortunately it wasn't well attended, but you did have a forum available. We're going to do it again just so that parents can have access to information centered around the impact of digital communication for our kids today.
Their program was really fabulous, and it was good, eye-opening information. So I mean, it was unfortunate only 3 people did attend, but you know, I was very grateful for the Attorney General's office for coming out and conducting that for us.
And you're planning on maybe doing another one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to stay the course, and hopefully people will see it to be relevant and important for their family.
I'm an old person. Do we give the parents the information on how they can monitor their children's iPhone and make sure they track it and lock it down?
Sure, yes, that was part of their programming.
Okay.
And they also offered, you know, free filters and other things like that you could get if you didn't have Verizon or AT&T, because a lot of people have minute phones, and so a lot of times they don't come with those protections. So they have a lot of really great digital and internet security offerings through the Attorney General. So I do hope that more people will come out, and the questions that those few that did attend asked were excellent questions, and I think very informative. We have a lot to learn in the digital security, you know, as far as that's concerned.
Can I go back to the elementary? One quick question for Ms. Curry. I noticed in their site, you had some site visits to preview literacy curriculums.
We did.
Are you getting close to deciding on one? Do y'all have one that's leading the pack there?
I don't know that we have one that's leading yet. We still have one more site visit to possibly go to. We went to Mina School District to view the program called Benchmark. And so we went down there about a month ago. And that was really good that they hosted us. We had really good instructional conversations with their staff. 2 different buildings. They had a K2 building and then an upper building. Then we went to Bryant a couple weeks ago, Collegeville Elementary, to view CKLA is the name of that program. Very impressed there as well. Had the same instructional conversations around that program. They use some similar programs we do, like our phonics program, they use a similar one. So that was very beneficial conversations for our teachers and seeing in action. We did kind of look at just in-house, one more that we had materials for called Wonders. We have not been to view that yet because it's only 3-6, and we really would like to stay consistent throughout the elementary building, possibly all the way up to 6th grade with the same program instead of having different programs for every couple grades. But we are still just going to give that due diligence and possibly view that program as well. Mount Ida is using that. So we're trying to get that one scheduled. We did have a meeting last week with our guiding coalition team, the PLC leaders that went on the site visits, just kind of establishing pros and cons of each one, you know, which one we feel might meet the best needs of our students and our needs. And then hopefully we're gonna have another meeting next week and we'll hope to have a decision by January.
And this will be implemented next school year?
Yes.
And we're tagging on with them
Okay.
because our 5th grade still needs to be RISE approved because it is, considered to be elementary. So Ms. Curry has just invited me to attend those things, and so we're looking to adopt together so
Good.
that we have that same consistency between both of our buildings.
Good. And then on the grading practices, y'all did some training on that?
Elementary.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
we had a team go to Minnesota.
have y'all
to a
already
conference.
changed the grading from ABCD to
Well,
the
we
new?
only did that in grades 3 and 4. We've been standards-based K2 for 7 or 8 years now, maybe
Yeah.
10. We were not in grades 3 and 4, they were still traditional ABCD. So we
Okay.
went, like, once I said, we were trying to be consistent in our building.
Right.
And so grades 3 and 4 adopted standards-based grading this year. It's been quite a shift, just for our teachers' mindset and not really our kids because they're used to that, coming up from grades K2, and our parents are pretty familiar with it. So our teachers needed a little bit more training, so we actually had 3 from 3rd grade and 4th grade, and then Ms. Freeman, our assistant, and Danielle, our lead teacher, they went to Minnesota for a 2-day conference. I guess that was last week, on standards-based grading to get some more information and kind of to help them understand the why behind it and bring that back to our team. So hopefully after Christmas, they're going to present to the staff and their team so that we can utilize the information they learned to help us grow in that area.
Middle school does not do that, right? Y'all
We do not, we're
traditional.
traditional.
Okay. And there's no plan to take that through?
I'd say I'm probably a little more progressive in that thinking than a majority of my staff, so they have expressed no interest in doing anything different at this time.
I like the way she puts it. Okay, thank you for those, answering those.
That was my politically correct
Yes, yes, you did good.
Mr. J, did you have any further comment?
No, I think I'm good.
Very good.
We do have an activity coming up, if you
Yeah.
want to make sure that you got that.
Yeah, I did have down there D, Miss Greason,
Yes.
the elementary and middle school literacy curriculum selection process, but we'll skip over that.
Oh, yeah.
since you,
Well, hey,
she's covered
Jump
it.
right
Appreciate it, thanks.
Hey, you're welcome, anytime.
And we do have our Cobra Winter Wonderland coming up. It is a parent community involvement activity on the asphalt parking lot outside the south new entrance to the football field. Weather permitting, and who knows what the weather will be. Right now, the guess would be it's going to be raining, but hopefully not. Won't be much of a bonfire if we move to the safer and no s'mores cooking.
Right.
In the safe. That's 5 to 7 this Thursday night. We're real excited about having that. We had a real good turnout for the trunk or treat activity, and so this is just the Christmas version of trunk or treat. So we're real excited about that.
Any board members wants to tag along, and I'll be cooking, and you can hand out some free nuts to the community if you want to show up for that event. So we're
Okay.
gonna have some food there.
What are you cooking?
Huh?
He's making some of these.
Ginger will be making those. He'll be
I'll be
making-
cooking. She'll be busy, she's got other activity.
Yeah. Okay, so this Thursday, y'all,
This
everybody's
Thursday.
invited.
What is
If you wanna
that?
come.
It's 2-hour window, she told me.
5 to
5 to
7.
7.
Yeah, I will say I went to I got the tail end of it, a PTO meeting,
Okay,
and I think between the 4 of us that were there, it went pretty good. But
Good.
that's why PTO's out there. So
Yes,
they're
PTO does a
looking
lot of
for
good stuff.
volunteers and
Yeah.
help, and
Yep.
they do a lot for our school, so.
they really do.
All right. Is that it on any other questions on the monthly reports? Good job, principals. Thank you so much for those. Those were very informative. Do we have any public comment? Okay, we'll move into our new business, and we are going to be on the tail end of adjourning this meeting, but not for the board.
So there is no new business, but then your next item.
Oh, yeah, we do have a couple of personnel motions.
All right, we got a motion to accept the letter of resignation to retire from Dan Harshfield effective December 31st, 2022.
All right. Any questions on that? The motion is to accept the letter of resignation, which is phrased kind of weird.
Yeah.
Resignation / retirement from Dan Harshfield effective December 31st, 2022. All in favor, say aye. Aye. None opposed. That is a 5-0 pass.
Motion to accept the letter of resignation as choir director and theater director from Catherine Combs effective December 31st, 2022.
Well, Catherine, if you're watching, we are sad to accept your resignation, but we know you are working hard to get better, so we will do this reluctantly. The motion is to accept the letter of resignation as choir director and theater director from Catherine Combs effective December 31st, 2022. All in favor, say aye. Aye. None opposed. That motion is approved 5-0.
Actually, I didn't say I was gonna give her a no just for a vote.
You didn't give her, I
No.
thought you did.
No.
Sorry. That is a 4-1.
Just a token that.
Yeah, we're sad to have to
Yeah.
accept
All
that.
right, motion to end employment of Donna Perkins as district aide and bus driver effective December 31st, 2022.
No comments or questions there. Y'all know if we have questions, we have to adjourn into executive session. So we have a motion to end the employment of Donna Perkins as district aide and bus driver effective December 31st, 2022. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Was that an aye from you, Brian?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a 5-0 pass.
Motion to pay Ambiance Martinez $1,590, which is half the choir director stipend for the 2022 fall semester.
Any questions on that? He's been doing the job, I guess is why we're doing that.
The extra parts. is
Right.
We had a long-term sub, he filled in, helped out, and took care of the outside of the school day stuff for us.
Okay. So the motion is to pay Ambiance Martinez $1,590, which is half the high school choir director stipend for the fall semester of 2022. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
And if he's watching, he does a great job.
Yes, he does.
I mean,
so
he's
on the-
really good.
Yeah.
There's two music concerts this week if anybody wants to come.
Props
First grade
to
tomorrow
Mr.
night,
Martinez.
Very good with the kids.
Yes.
Very good.
So this is, he's gonna continue doing the same thing he's been doing.
This was.
This was extra that he's doing in the fall.
I know, but he's been doing it. No, he hasn't.
He
Not
has
as
been
packed.
doing
So
it
he's been
this
doing
year,
the senior
so-
high choir and ninth grade choir. He took care of their performance and stuff to getting them ready, and then you've got something coming up here in a minute.
He's
Right.
doing the fall.
This
and
next
pay.
one.
That's what I'm saying. So what we need to do,
That's the next one.
Would you want to
Talk
pay
about
both
this.
halves?
Right, that's
you're
what I'm
asking?
saying.
What we would ask that you do is honor the work that he's performed for the fall. And if he wants to continue to support us into the spring with any spring activities, we'll bring back a recommendation to pay the other half in the spring.
Okay.
Correct?
At this point, we expect to pay the other half to
The next.
the next person.
Okay.
But it could be that we come to you and ask
For
at the end
support.
of the year.
For more.
For more.
That's
Right.
fine.
All right, so that one passed
Well, if that
5-0.
happens, yeah, bring it
Yeah,
back.
and with that being said, it could be that we come to you with a recommendation to hire Mrs. Combs
If she gets help.
If she,
if
yeah.
she's able to.
Right.
As soon as she's able to, we would recommend her being rehired.
Right,
No, yeah.
okay.
We got that one out of the way?
Yes, that
Okay.
one's one.
Motion to hire Caden Chapman as interim middle school / high school choir teacher, spring semester 2023 only, effective January 9th, 2023.
So this is interim until we know if,
This would be for the second
Combs.
semester.
the second semester.
okay,
And then make the decision next.
And then if
Okay.
if Mrs. Combs could come back during the semester, we would have two, is what we.
Right.
Okay.
We'd bring her back.
okay,
We're gonna hire this
Bring
one
her
for
back.
the semester.
okay. Motion to hire Caden Chapman as interim middle school, high school choir teacher, spring semester 23 only, effective January 9th, 2023. All in favor say aye. Aye. None opposed. That is a 5-0 pass. And if there is no other business, I'm not going to adjourn the meeting, but I am going to say that the board is going to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of the superintendent's review. There will be no voting when we come back in, and we will adjourn after that is over, so y'all feel free to go. And thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
I've noticed you always bring